We start off by removing the old head gasket. Our vehicle never had an issue overheating, so there was no need to have the block or head resurfaced. Now you can check for warpage by using a bit of flat bar across the surfaces, as the OEM spec calls anything under 10 thousandths as good. One of the most important steps of changing the head gasket is making sure the mating surfaces are completely and thoroughly clean. I like to use Marvel Mystery Oil to wet sand the surfaces with my first pass at 220, then 400 grit as my final. Here is my quick tip. If there's any remnants of the old head gasket left on either surface, you'll probably have issues down the road. If you look carefully, I'm setting the piston at top dead center. You do not have to be 100% spot on with the TDC at this point, however, you should try to get it as fairly close as possible. Installing the new head gasket is very simple, as it can only go on one way. Here is a picture of the head's mating surface. As you can see, it is free of debris and ready to be installed. Make sure and take your time when installing the head on the block. There is no need to rush at this point of the installation. Damaging the head gasket is a very real scenario, so take your time. There are 10 bolts in total that secure the head to the block on the LTG. Some people may disagree with what they see here, but I personally like to use Hermetex Red high strength thread locker. Now, this is my personal preference. Whether a naturally aspirated or forced induction engine, I always use high strength thread locker. As you can see, I completely cover the bottom of the threads. As we tighten down the bolts, the thread locker will contact more surface area, thus creating a tighter bond. The head gasket is installed, the bolts are in, it's time for the fun part, torquing down the head. So, what are the numbers? Well, General Motors instructions goes as follows. Number 1, tighten the bolt in sequence to 30 Newton meters or 22 pound-feet. If this is your first time using a torque wrench, you can either go digital or mechanical. I prefer mechanical, like the one I'm using in this video. Here I am showing you the LTG torque sequence, starting out in the middle and working your way outwards. If you have any doubt that you missed a bolt in the sequence, start back at number 1 and work your way through the sequence again. Alright, step number 2. Tighten the bolts an additional 190 degrees in sequence. I went ahead and purchased the cheapest torque angle meter, around $20 US, to showcase that it can be used to complete this process. Here is my pro tip. As long as you achieve 190 degrees total, you can break this sequence down into 2 steps. When these modern GDI engines are built at the factory, a machine torques down all 10 bolts at the same time. I prefer to complete the 190 degrees in 2 passes instead of 1. So, what exactly am I saying? Well, first, let's talk about what you see here on screen. You have to make sure your 6.15mm socket stays flat on the bolt. When tightening down the bolts, your extension and breaker bar should maintain 90 degrees. Stripping a head bolt at this point in the game would be extremely frustrating. Do not be afraid to reposition yourself to get better leverage, as the number we are looking for here is 120 degrees. Well, wait a minute. The instructions say a sequence of 190 degrees. That is correct. However, my first pass is 120 degrees for 2 reasons. Number 1, the amount of force it takes to achieve 190 degrees is substantial. Number 2, I have always torqued down heads with 3 sequential passes. Call it what you want, but that's how I prefer to do it. With all 10 bolts at 120 degrees, it's time for the big gun. Before you run out and purchase this massive breaker bar, I would check with your local parts store to see if you can rent one, as they are expensive. Our third and final pass is always a bit exciting to me, as I can visualize turning up the boost with every bolt I torque down. The magic number here is 70 degrees. Complete the sequence and pat yourself on the back. If you would like to learn how to work on your LTG, click subscribe now. Our DIY Home Mechanic Build Series offers a step-by-step guide where we show you how to work on your 2.0 with basic hand tools in a driveway. Make sure and check out our video on how to install an engine with a cherry picker. As always, thank you for watching, and don't forget to disconnect your battery when working on your vehicle.